The darkness of space held many secrets, but none as significant as the one humanity had kept for 50 years. Behind Earth's moon, hidden from prying eyes, floated the greatest fleet ever built by human hands. Over 10,000 warships, their black hulls absorbing what little light reached them, waited in perfect formation. Admiral James Walker stood at the observation deck of the Retribution, Earth's flagship and the crown jewel of human engineering. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as he watched more ships take their positions. Each vessel represented countless hours of work, sacrifice, and determination. His gray hair and the deep lines around his eyes told the story of a man who had given everything to this cause. "Admiral, the final squadron is in position," reported Captain Miller from behind him. The young officer's voice carried both excitement and nervousness. This was the moment they had all trained for, yet none of them had ever faced real combat. How could they? Earth had been silent for half a century. Walker nodded, his eyes still fixed on the gathering fleet. "Show me the final numbers," he ordered, turning to face the holographic display that sprang to life between them. The statistics were impressive. 10,457 warships, 2.3 million personnel, and enough firepower to reshape solar systems. Each ship carried the new quantum fold drives and dark matter weapons, technology that would shock the Empire to its core. The memory of the day Earth went dark was still fresh in his mind. He had been a young lieutenant then, watching helplessly as Imperial ships darkened the skies above every major city. Their message had been clear: submit or die. The Empire had given Earth 1 year to surrender and become their slaves. Instead, humanity chose a third option. "Send the signal to all ships," Walker commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Begin power-up sequences for the quantum fold drives. Remind all captains, radio silence remains in effect until we emerge at the target coordinates." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements practiced from countless drills. Through the window, Walker could see the soft blue glow of engines coming to life across the fleet. The sight reminded him of stars being born. Deep within the Retribution, the quantum fold drive hummed to life. The device was humanity's greatest achievement, a propulsion system that didn't just bend space, but folded it completely. The Empire's faster-than-light drives were like horses compared to this thoroughbred of human innovation. "Sir," Captain Miller spoke again, "engineering reports all ships show green across the board. Dark matter weapons are primed and stable. The fleet is ready." Walker took a deep breath. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. While the Empire believed Earth was cowering in fear, humanity had been building, innovating, and preparing. They had taken Imperial technology, stripped it down, and rebuilt it into something far more dangerous. "Send the final coded message to Earth Command," Walker ordered. "Operation Thunderstrike is commencing." He straightened his black uniform, the gold stripes on his shoulders catching the light. "Set coordinates for the Imperial core. Let's show them what humanity can do." The fleet began to move in perfect synchronization, a dance of vessels practiced for decades. As the quantum fold drives engaged, space itself seemed to ripple around them. There was no flash of light, no dramatic effect. The ships simply ceased to exist in one location, ready to appear in another. Just before his ship made the jump, Walker allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had expected Earth to bend the knee like countless civilizations before them. Instead, they would learn a painful lesson about human nature. When backed into a corner, humanity didn't surrender. They evolved, adapted, and came back stronger. The fleet vanished into the quantum fold, leaving behind an empty lunar orbit and 50 years of silence. The next time these ships would be seen, they would herald the beginning of humanity's revenge and the end of Imperial dominance. The game of submission was over. The age of humanity had begun. 50 years earlier, the day that changed everything started like any other. The morning sun rose over New York, Tokyo, and London, casting long shadows across streets filled with people going about their daily lives. None of them knew that by noon, everything would change. They came without warning. 20 massive ships, each one larger than the tallest skyscrapers, appeared in the skies above Earth's major cities. Their hulls gleamed with a metallic purple sheen that no human factory had ever produced. Traffic stopped. Phones came out to record. The world held its breath. In the United Nations emergency session, Robert Thompson, then a junior diplomat, watched the main screen with growing dread. The alien ships had arranged themselves in a perfect geometric pattern around the globe, ignoring all attempts at communication. Military jets that approached too closely simply disappeared, their systems completely shut down by invisible forces. "They're broadcasting something," announced the head of communications. The message appeared simultaneously on every screen, phone, and television across the planet. The translation matrix they sent made their words perfectly clear. Lord Marcus, the Imperial Ambassador, appeared on the screens. He looked almost human, except for his silver-tinted skin and eyes that seemed to reflect light like a cat's. "People of Earth," he began, his voice carrying a musical quality that made it both beautiful and terrifying. "Your civilization has been noticed by the Galactic Empire. You have achieved enough technology to warrant our attention, but not enough to resist our will." Thompson watched the faces around him grow pale. World leaders, generals, and diplomats, all of them powerless before this display of technological superiority. The ambassador continued, "You have one Earth year to accept your place as a tributary state of the Empire. This is an honor. Hundreds of worlds before you have accepted our guidance and flourished under imperial rule." The terms were simple. Earth would provide resources and labor to the Empire. In return, they would receive limited access to imperial technology and protection from other spacefaring races. The alternative was equally simple: complete destruction. "We will return in 1 year," Lord Marcus concluded. "Choose wisely." The transmission ended, and the ships vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind a planet in chaos. But what happened next would shock even the Empire, if they had been watching closely enough. Instead of falling into panic and division, humanity united. In secret bunkers deep beneath the Earth's surface, leaders from every nation met. The decision was unanimous. Earth would not submit. "They expect us to either surrender or fight back immediately," General Howard had said during that first secret meeting. "So we'll do neither. We'll disappear." The plan was audacious. Earth would go dark. All long-range communications would cease. Cities would be moved underground. The surface would appear abandoned, as if humanity had torn itself apart in fear. Meanwhile, every resource, every mind, every factory would be dedicated to one purpose: preparing for war. When Imperial scouts passed by 6 months later, they found a planet that seemed to be regressing. Radio signals had ceased. Satellite networks had been dismantled. Cities appeared partly abandoned. They reported back to their superiors that Earth was clearly preparing to submit, falling back to a more primitive state in fear of imperial might. But deep underground, in vast chambers carved into the Earth's crust, humanity was anything but primitive. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, studying the few pieces of imperial technology they had managed to salvage from brief scans during first contact. Engineers reverse-engineered and improved upon alien concepts. Factories produced components for ships that would rival anything in the Imperial fleet. Robert Thompson, now Earth's chief diplomat, stood in one of these underground cities, watching workers assemble the first quantum fold drive. "Let them think we're cowering in fear," he said to no one in particular. "Let them think we're just another primitive race ready to kneel. When we finally show ourselves again, the Empire won't know what hit them." The plan was working perfectly. The Empire's greatest mistake wasn't threatening Earth. It was giving humanity time to prepare. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility known only as the Forge, Dr. Anna Wright stood before the latest version of the quantum fold drive. The device hummed softly, its inner core glowing with a deep blue light that seemed to bend the space around it. Unlike the crude first versions they'd built from stolen Imperial designs, this one was purely human innovation. "Run the test again," she ordered, her eyes fixed on the monitoring screens. The team of engineers around her moved with practiced efficiency, their underground lab filled with the soft clicks of keyboards and the whir of cooling systems. The test chamber lit up as the drive activated. In the center, a steel ball disappeared from one containment field and appeared instantly in another 50 meters away. No flash, no sound, no trace of its movement through space. "Perfect. Time to transit?" Anna asked, though she already knew the answer. The drive's performance had been flawless for months now. 0.00 seconds, Doctor, replied her assistant, Tom Baker. The quantum fold was instantaneous, just like the last 100 tests. He smiled, still amazed by what they'd achieved. The Empire won't know what hit them. Anna nodded, remembering how they'd started. The Empire's faster-than-light drives were impressive, but they worked by pushing through space like a boat through water. The quantum fold drive was different. It didn't move through space. It folded it, making 2 points temporarily occupy the same location. Their ships wouldn't just be faster than Imperial vessels. They would make traditional space combat obsolete. But the quantum fold drive wasn't their only breakthrough. In a sealed chamber next door, behind 3 feet of reinforced walls, the dark matter weapon prototype sat ready for its daily test. This was humanity's ace in the hole. "Begin dark matter containment test," Anna commanded, moving to the heavily shielded observation room. The weapon looked deceptively simple, a sleek cylinder about the size of a car engine. But inside, it held enough power to tear apart the fabric of space itself. The Empire's ships relied on energy shields, complex barriers that could stop any normal weapon. But dark matter wasn't normal. It passed through Imperial shields like they weren't even there, disrupting the very atoms of their hull plates. "Dark matter containment stable at 100%, Tom reported. "Power output exceeding Imperial shield estimates by factor of 12. We could punch through their biggest battleship like it was made of paper." Anna allowed herself a small smile. In the 50 years since first contact, humanity hadn't just caught up to Imperial technology. They'd surpassed it. The Empire's mistake was thinking that fear would make humans submit. Instead, it had driven them to achieve the impossible. Moving through the vast underground complex, Anna passed hundreds of workers assembling the new drives and weapons. The forge was just one of 50 such facilities hidden across the planet, each one protected by layers of rock and secrecy, each one working tirelessly to arm Earth's hidden fleet. She stopped at the main viewing window, looking down at the assembly floor. Row after row of quantum fold drives waited for installation, their cores pulsing with that characteristic blue glow. Beside them, dark matter weapons were being carefully loaded into protective containers for transport to the shipyards behind the moon. "Dr. Wright," a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Walker himself walking towards her, his uniform immaculate even in the industrial setting of the forge. "Is everything ready?" "Yes, Admiral," she replied, handing him the final test results. "Both the drives and weapons are performing beyond our highest expectations. The Empire's technological advantage is about to become their biggest weakness." Walker studied the data carefully. 50 years, he said quietly. 50 years of hiding, building, and preparing. "Tell me, Doctor, was it worth the wait?" Anna looked back at the assembly floor, at humanity's answer to Imperial arrogance. "They gave us time, Admiral. Time to study, time to improve, time to perfect. When our fleet appears above their worlds, they'll learn that humanity doesn't just copy technology. We master it." The time for hiding was almost over. Soon, the Empire would learn just how dangerous Earth's silence had been. Space ripped open above Imperial City, the capital of the Empire's richest core world. Not at the system's edge, where ships normally appeared, but directly above the gleaming towers of the Imperial Palace itself. The quantum fold drive's blue light reflected off the city's golden spires as Earth's fleet materialized from nowhere. At the same moment, 6 other Imperial worlds experienced the same impossible sight. Thousands of black ships appearing from thin air, their weapons already charged and ready. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Walker stood tall, his voice clear and steady. Broadcast on all Imperial frequencies. Let them hear humanity's response to their ultimatum. The communications officer nodded, and Walker began to speak. His words echoed through every Imperial communication device across 7 star systems simultaneously. Attention, Galactic Empire. 50 years ago, you gave Earth an ultimatum. Submit or be destroyed. Today, we give you ours. In Imperial City, panic spread through the streets. Their mighty defensive fleet was caught completely off guard, still docked in the orbital stations. The quantum fold drive had let Earth's ships bypass every defense line, every early warning system, every protective measure the Empire had built over 1,000 years. Launch fighters, ordered Walker, watching as waves of smaller craft poured from the larger ships. Target their orbital defenses first. Show them what our dark matter weapons can do. The first shots of the war were fired by humanity. Beams of invisible force struck Imperial defense stations. There was no explosion, no dramatic fire. The stations simply came apart at the atomic level, their mighty shields useless against weapons that ignored the normal laws of physics. Imperial ships finally began to respond, rising from their docks in desperate haste. Their commanders had trained all their lives, but nothing had prepared them for an enemy that could appear anywhere and whose weapons ignored their strongest defenses. Imperial vessels approaching, Admiral, reported Captain Miller. Their weapons are charging. Walker nodded calmly. Let them fire. Let them learn. The Imperial fleet opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space with brilliant colors. But Earth's ships simply folded space around themselves, the attacks passing through empty void where ships had been microseconds before. The human fleet reappeared behind the Imperial ships, dark matter weapons reducing the pride of the Empire to clouds of scattered atoms. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, "Imperial reinforcements are arriving at the system's edge. 300 capital ships." "Perfect," Walker replied. "They're still thinking in terms of normal space travel. Execute Maneuver 7. Earth's fleet split into precise groups. As the Imperial reinforcements charged forward at their fastest speed, humanity's ships simply vanished again. They reappeared scattered throughout the Imperial formation, firing in every direction. There was no front line, no way to concentrate defenses. Every Imperial ship found itself surrounded by enemies that could ignore their shields and disappear the moment they tried to return fire. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, the space above Imperial City was filled with floating debris that had once been the Empire's proudest ships. Similar scenes played out across all 7 targeted systems. Walker opened the broadcast channel again. This was a demonstration. 7 systems struck simultaneously. Your defenses bypassed. Your strongest weapons made useless. Your ships destroyed. He paused, letting the message sink in. You thought Earth went silent out of fear. You were wrong. We went silent to prepare, to innovate, to surpass you in every way. Below the fleet, Imperial City was in chaos. The impossible had happened. An inferior race had not just challenged the Empire, but had proved capable of striking anywhere, at any time, with unstoppable force. You have 1 hour to begin surrender negotiations, Walker concluded. Unlike you, we won't wait a year for an answer. Humanity's patience is at its end. The message ended, and Walker watched the panicked communications flying between Imperial worlds. 50 years of silence had ended in 20 minutes of absolute dominance. The Empire's age of unchallenged power was over. The Imperial Palace's Grand Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Emperor Augustus stood at his golden throne, his silver skin pale with shock as reports continued to flood in from across his realm. Admirals, generals, and nobles argued loudly, their voices echoing off the crystal walls. "Impossible," shouted High Admiral Reed, his decorated uniform no longer looking as impressive after half his fleet had been destroyed. "No race can develop such technology in mere decades. They must have had help." The Emperor raised his hand for silence. On the massive holographic display before them, red dots showed systems where Earth's forces had struck. 7 of their most heavily defended worlds hit simultaneously. No warning, no chance to fight back. The Empire's mighty fleets reduced to drifting debris in minutes. "My Emperor," Lord Marcus stepped forward, the same ambassador who had delivered the ultimatum to Earth 50 years ago. He looked much older now, his once proud bearing replaced by fear. We thought they were primitive. Their ships, their weapons, they were nothing special when we found them. And now they appear at will above our capitals," Augustus said quietly. "Our shields cannot stop their weapons. Our fastest ships cannot catch them. Tell me, Lord Marcus, what else did we get wrong about these humans?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber's alarms blared again. The holographic display shifted, showing new attacks. Earth's fleet had struck 3 more systems, this time targeting the Empire's largest shipyards. Again, they appeared directly above their targets, ignored all defenses, and vanished before meaningful resistance could be mounted. "Order all remaining fleets to protect the core worlds," High Admiral Reed commanded. "Begging your pardon, Admiral," a young officer interrupted. "But how? They can appear anywhere. Our defensive lines mean nothing to them." The truth of those words hit everyone in the chamber. The Empire's military doctrine, perfected over 1,000 years, was based on controlling space lanes and maintaining strong defensive positions. But the humans didn't use space lanes. They didn't need to break through defensive lines. They simply appeared where they wanted to be. "We still outnumber them," another general offered weakly. "Our total fleet strength is still 10 times their numbers." Emperor Augustus laughed bitterly. "Numbers. Our ships might as well be made of paper. Did you see the battle footage? Their weapons go straight through our strongest shields, and we can't hit them. They simply fold space around themselves and vanish." The chamber fell silent as another report came in. 3 Imperial fleet groups, trying to coordinate an attack on an Earth task force, had just been annihilated. The humans had appeared inside their formation, fired in all directions simultaneously, and disappeared before a single Imperial ship could lock weapons. "My Emperor," Lord Marcus spoke again, his voice shaking. Perhaps we should consider their terms." "Terms?" Augustus turned to face the ambassador. "They haven't even given us terms yet. This is just their response to our ultimatum from 50 years ago. We demanded they submit or face destruction. Now they're showing us what they think of that choice." As if to emphasize his words, the display lit up with yet another attack. This time, Earth's ships had struck the Empire's largest fuel production facility. No explosion, no dramatic battle. The facility simply came apart at the atomic level under the dark matter weapons assault. "Send the message," Emperor Augustus finally said, sinking into his throne. Tell them the Empire is ready to discuss their terms." The chamber, once the heart of the mightiest civilization in known space, fell into stunned silence. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire was not making demands. It was begging to negotiate. In orbit high above them, Admiral Walker received the Empire's message. He allowed himself a small smile. "Send word to Earth. Phase 1 is complete. The Empire has learned what humanity can do. Now they'll learn what we want in return for peace." The quantum fold drives began to power up again. The Empire's nightmare was far from over. The Imperial Senate Hall was massive, built to hold representatives from 10,000 worlds. Today, it held only silence. Admiral Walker stood at the central podium, his black uniform a stark contrast to the white and gold of Imperial design. Above them, visible through the transparent dome, the retribution hung in the sky like a dark sword. "Your empire," Walker began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber, "has ruled through fear for 1,000 years. You found young civilizations, gave them impossible choices, and called their submission acceptance of imperial guidance." He paused, looking directly at Emperor Augustus. "Today, that ends." The emperor sat rigid on his throne, brought down from the palace to show proper respect to Earth's representative. Around him, senators from across the empire watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. None had ever seen their emperor forced to listen to demands. "Earth's terms are simple," Walker continued, activating a holographic display. "First, all imperial expansion stops. Immediately. No more ultimatums to developing worlds. No more tributary states. Every civilization will be free to develop at its own pace." Murmurs ran through the crowd. The empire had always grown through conquest and intimidation. The idea of stopping was almost unthinkable. "Second," Walker's voice cut through the whispers, "reparations. The empire will provide technology and resources to help rebuild worlds you've stripped bare. A committee of Earth observers will ensure fair distribution." Emperor Augustus gripped his throne's armrests tightly but remained silent. On the screens around the hall, more of Earth's ships appeared above other imperial worlds, a clear reminder of what disagreement would bring. "Third, the imperial military will be reduced by 80%. The remaining ships will be modified with governors that prevent them from approaching developing worlds. Earth will oversee this process." Now the murmurs turned to shouts of protest. Lord Marcus stood up. "This is outrageous. You would leave us defenseless." Walker turned his cold gaze to the ambassador. "Defenseless? Like you left others? No, you'll keep enough ships to defend your current territory. You just won't be able to threaten anyone else." He smiled slightly. "Besides, if anyone attacks you, they'll have to deal with Earth." The irony was not lost on the Senate. The Empire would now depend on protection from a world they had tried to conquer. Finally, Walker activated another display, showing technical readouts. "Earth will establish a technology exchange program. But not like your tributes. We will share advances with any civilization that proves they can use them responsibly. The age of hoarding knowledge to maintain power is over." Emperor Augustus finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of a fallen empire. "And if we refuse these terms?" Walker didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed a button on his podium. Outside, in clear view through the dome, the Retribution's dark matter weapons powered up. A thin beam shot out, striking a small, uninhabited moon. The entire Senate watched in horror as the moon simply ceased to exist, its matter scattered to atoms. "That was 5% power," Walker said quietly. "We have enough ships to target every major world in your empire simultaneously. You spent 1,000 years making others choose between submission and destruction." He let his words hang in the air. "How does it feel to face that choice yourselves?" The silence in the Senate hall was absolute. Every being present understood the magnitude of this moment. The empire, which had seemed eternal and unshakable, was being reshaped by a species they had dismissed as primitive just 50 years ago. Emperor Augustus slowly stood. For a moment, he looked at the empty space where the moon had been. Then, with all the dignity he could muster, he spoke the words no emperor had ever said before. "We accept your terms." Walker nodded once. "A wise choice. The rebuilding begins tomorrow. Earth will help guide the empire into a new age, not through fear, but through cooperation." As he finished speaking, more Earth ships appeared in the sky, taking up positions above the Senate hall. The message was clear. Humanity's terms would be enforced, one way or another. 5 years after the Empire's surrender, Admiral Walker stood on the observation deck of humanity's new space station, Unity. The massive structure orbited a neutral point between Earth and the Empire's capital world, serving as a symbol of the changed galaxy. Below him, ships from 100 different worlds moved through space. Some were Imperial designs, now modified according to Earth's requirements. Others were new vessels built with combined human and Imperial technology. But most interesting were the small ships from developing civilizations, here to learn and trade. Admiral Captain Miller approached, now wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Peace Force. The representatives from the Centauri colonies have arrived. They're eager to learn about the quantum fold drive. Walker nodded, remembering how Earth had hidden this same technology 50 years ago. Are their scientists ready for the responsibility? Yes, sir. They passed all the ethical evaluations. Unlike the Empire, they want to use it for exploration, not conquest. That was the key difference in the new galaxy. Technology was no longer a weapon to dominate others, but a tool to help civilizations grow. Earth made sure of that. Through the window, Walker watched an Imperial transport dock at the station. 5 years ago, such ships brought threats and demands. Now they carried students, scientists, and traders. The Empire's military might had been replaced by cultural and scientific exchange. Report from Earth Command, sir, a young officer called out. The restoration project on Proxima II is ahead of schedule. The Imperial mining operations destroyed much of their ecosystem, but our terraforming technology is bringing it back. Walker smiled. Healing the Empire's damage had become humanity's new mission. Where Imperial ships once brought fear, Earth's vessels now brought hope and renewal. In the station's main conference room, Dr. Anna Wright was teaching a class of aliens from various worlds. The quantum fold drive's secrets were being shared, but only after thorough evaluation of each civilization's intentions. On the screen behind her, complex equations showed how humanity had improved upon the original Imperial faster-than-light technology. The key, she explained to her diverse audience, isn't just understanding how to fold space. It's understanding when you should and when you shouldn't. Power without wisdom is what led to the Empire's downfall. Outside the classroom, more signs of change were everywhere. Imperial citizens mixed freely with humans and representatives from developing worlds. The rigid hierarchy of the old empire had been replaced by a community of equals. Lord Marcus, the former Imperial ambassador, now served on the Joint Scientific Council. Walker found him in the station's garden, studying earth plants with genuine interest. "Did you ever imagine this?" Walker asked him, gesturing at the peaceful scene around them. Marcus shook his head. "When we first found Earth, we thought we were being generous, offering you a place in our empire." He touched a flower gently. "We never considered that you might offer us something better instead." The station's alert system chimed softly, announcing the arrival of more ships. This time, it was a fleet of small vessels from a newly discovered civilization in the Orient sector. Like Earth 50 years ago, they had just achieved spaceflight. But unlike Earth, they weren't meeting conquerors, they were meeting teachers. "Send the welcome message," Walker ordered. "Let them know that the galaxy is open to them, not as servants, but as equals." As he watched the new ships approach, Walker thought about how far both humanity and the Empire had come. Earth had turned its greatest challenge into an opportunity not just for victory, but for transformation. They hadn't just defeated the Empire, they had changed it into something better. The stars seemed brighter now, full of possibility rather than threat. Humanity's response to Imperial aggression had created a new age of exploration, cooperation, and growth. The silence of fear had been replaced by the noise of 1,000 worlds talking, trading, and learning together. Earth's revenge hadn't been destruction, it had been revolution. And the galaxy was better for it.